All right, and good evening, everybody, and welcome to Train World TV. And tonight we have a very special episode, something near and dear to Tony Cook's heart. The U25, the U-boat special from Rapido, big HO announcement, and Tony, you are like a kid in a candy store these days with all these Rapido announcements. Oh my God.
When this announcement rolled out, I think I had been messaging. It might have been Matt Gentry at Rapido. I said, "Do you guys ever sleep?" It's like every day. I mean, I think of some of this. You've got Alco PAs, E units, all the freight cars, and then wow, this. And yeah, Ken, this for me, I think every modeler's got that bucket list of, oh man, if I own such and such, I would make this or I would make that. And the U25B has always been a favorite of mine. It is a super sought after model for the collectors because Lindbergh had announced it in like 1968. They even showed one. I have one. And then they never released it. It never came out. Mm-hmm. And then nothing until, Stuart Hobbies did one in the late 80s. But we've never had a fantastic, and when I talk with my dad, who is also a big train guy, he says, what would be great is if somebody would do the U25 and even do that early phase with the high hood and the odd handrails, but it'll never happen, outside of brass. And man, then that morning earlier this summer, the announcement from Rapido, my chin is sore from how it dropped and hit the desk so hard that morning of what? They're doing what?
I remember that first email I sent you when we were talking about that. It's like you were very excited.
In our September Model Railroad News, I do that Lindbergh, and I've got an Alco Models brass and the Stewart. I show all those, and I mention in there somewhere that the day it was announced, I texted Jason Schron with just a all caps thank you, and then really with a question mark. And he said, yes, really. So this is awesome. And then I said, Ken, we got to do a show on this. This has got to be the coolest diesel, I think, coming out. And we got Craig Walker and Jordan Smith from Rapido Trains with us today to talk about it. And I got a slew of pictures from Kevin U. Daly's The White River Collection. We can look at prototypes, and these guys can tell us because, as you know, Ken, this is not just, they're making a U25. They're making like 3 or 4 U25s in the first round if you count all the variations and road specific, and that still doesn't cover all the U25s. There will be more in the future.
This just scratches the surface, and every single one we're doing unique details for each one. So that's going even deeper, like different sills, different battery boxes, all kinds of stuff. We'll see some of that when we look at the renders in a few minutes there.
Yeah, Jordan, just so you know that Tony Cook actually set up a GoFundMe page so Tony could buy all of the Rapido U-boats. So
nice.
if anyone wants to help out Tony, collect them all.
No, Ken, you're exaggerating. I think I told you there were only 5 that I'm buying out of the first round.
Only 5.
I'm being conservative on this. So okay, all right.
Well, I figure we've got enough road names and paint scheme variations to keep us busy doing a release every year or two for the next decade or more. So this is a great project.
Well, it's such a landmark piece. Mm-hmm. I mean, and everybody it is the first U-boat, but then in a way it kind of, GE had been involved with Alco. In fact, you can go all the way back to like what the Ingersoll ran box cab diesel of like 1912. GE had a hand in that. They worked with Alco. They split in the early 50s. And there's like that UD18 that they built for Mexico that looks a little bit like the test bed U25s. They had those things that look like Alco FAs with the fluted sides.
Yeah, the ones Erie, I think.
Yes, Erie. Yeah. They were never I think UP finally bought them, but they were painted Erie for a while, then UP, and they were test beds for that Cooper Bessemer engine. So there's a lot of history behind that, but the U25 is always considered that landmark. It started the horsepower race in the 60s. It's the first, what do they call the compartment, where a pressurized compartment to keep the dust out. Yeah, I mean, and GE, what they are today, I mean, you can basically trace everything back to the U25 in about 1960. So yeah, it's a fantastic model.
Yep.
So somebody did their homework.
We have. So, oh yeah, absolutely.
Tony's gonna go work for Rapido just for the U25 project. Make sure you get it right.
Exactly.
Now, who wants to be the first one to show some pictures of, I guess, the Rapido U25?
I've got the renders here. I can bring those up in just give me 1 sec. Where do we want to start here? Maybe we'll start with the some of the high hoods.
I love that we get to see these now. You know, Ken, they'd always show us like the flat elevated drawings, like, yeah. But these CAD drawings we get to look at now on models that are yet to be, it gives you such a, there's none of that. Oh, I hope they do this, or I hope it looks like that. You really get to, even though they're just gray 3D renderings, it's so awesome to get to see these.
Yeah, and a picture is worth 1,000 words. So
it's okay there. Just want to make sure that these are actually rendering properly.
No, I don't see it on your screen. It's
let's try this again. Maybe I clicked the wrong share button here. Let me try this again. Share screen window. How about that? Is that working?
There you go.
Okay.
There we go.
So the one thing to keep in mind when we're looking at these are very early renderings. You might see some details that might need to be adjusted, or that might be a little bit out of place. We are doing a pretty comprehensive set of revisions and corrections for these. So these are a work in progress. We'll be showing more as we get that kind of design nailed down and go into tooling.
There's a lot of detail in that.
Oh, absolutely. And like we said before, every single every single road name, you've got the demos, you've got the UP engines, you've got the Friscos. This is just for the high hoods. And we've done unique details for each. So, I mean, this is the demo. Actually, this is the UP version, I believe.
Wow.
Of the demo.
So how does that work, Jordan? Because like all these U25s, each road name, each paint scheme, they all have these special, unique, different entities. So how does that work with like the molding process? And because that's got to be a lot of pre-planning in order to like cut it, because you're basically cutting the molds once to save money and to be more efficient. So how does that all work? I'm assuming you have to do a lot of pre-planning, research, and your homework.
Oh, absolutely. And actually getting if you actually look at this project, this has been something that we've been working on for quite a while now. It's been probably about a year and a half, 2 years since we really started getting our research and started doing initial designs. So we've got kind of a general core chassis, which is pretty much one kind of design, and then everything else has been redesigned or designed around that. So I mean, just looking at the like the sill details, the battery boxes, that's like a different component for each road name, and everything kind of connects on top of that. And for these, it'll be just kind of like how we're redoing the RS11s and stuff like that. We've got kind of one piece. The shell all connects as one piece and lifts right off. So that's one thing that we've designed for this. But we've got different trucks, different bearing covers, pilots. Everything is kind of been designed from the ground up for this.
Wow.
That's
really cool.
This is again a close up. I believe this is the UP sample again. Just some of the tread detail, all the latch detail. Again, still an early rendering, but you can see what everything is looking like there. All the hinges.
And these early ones, I think this is compared to some of the other diesels you've done. But this style, the handrails, you see the stanchions fit into the walkways rather than now the late phase 25s have the handrails that go down to the side and go into the sill.
Yeah,
but this is kind of a different design that was on these earlier ones.
Exactly, and we will be looking at doing those late phase units as well. The late phase U25s with the two-piece windshields, the later handrails. They have the sloped nose on them. We'll be looking at doing those too, as well as the U28s, which were the early U28s, which were a similar design. But these are going to have the that kind of early railing that just kind of goes straight across like that.
Now, Jordan, you could always call up Tony if you have any specific questions.
Absolutely. Absolutely. For sure. He's actually
And what am I supposed to do?
you can be the coordinator for all that stuff.
Yeah. Don't worry, Craig. Tony's pushing everybody out of the way on this one.
What is, Craig, I know that Jordan mentioned the battery boxes, that on the back above the back truck, the U25, both B's and C's had the step up and over. What's in there? Explain that. Is that like a blower duct housing thing, like on an EMD? Why is there
pretty much? It's I think they call it an equipment cleaning box, or it's been a couple of weeks since I did the master class, and I've forgotten what we call it now. But it's basically an area that stays clean or cleans things, like the airlines and that kind of thing. Interestingly, the one we measured out here in California, when I opened it up to look in there, all it was spare knuckles and air hoses. But
and interestingly, it's not even consistent across all U25s. If you look at Santa Fe's, some of Santa Fe's early U25s, that didn't even exist. It was just the walkway was straight across.
Just on two.
Yeah, just on the first two, yeah, and then later on.
I think it was the last two.
The last two, or first, whichever one was there.
But and they're different lengths. Some have them on the right, some have them on the left, some have them on both sides, some have them on neither side.
Yep.
And then some are longer than others. Some have a step bolted onto the face when you have to cross over it. Some have a step cut into the box itself. So there's so many varieties. It drove us nuts.
Yep.
And we're getting a bunch of questions on these, so we'll see. We got 3 expert guests, excluding myself. So we'll give it a shot. I noticed that's a high nose. Will you be making the low nose ones?
Absolutely. We've already announced those too. So let me scroll through here a bit.
Cool.
Nope, there's the low nose.
Yeah, there's a low nose.
There you go.
The early low nose, the flat low nose as opposed to the angled low nose.
Okay.
And with one large windshield as opposed to the 2-piece windshield, which came later.
Yeah. And
then, of course, to further confuse things, some had 2-piece windshields and the flat nose. Some had 2-piece windshields and the sloping nose. So,
what's the little thing that looks like the desk lamp that's above the MU connector that's there on where the drop step is? What is that?
It's a desk lamp.
It is a desk lamp.
It's a lamp. Yeah.
Okay.
It's so when the crew is crossing from one locomotive to another, they've got some light up there.
Wow.
They can see where they're stepping.
That's also going to be a feature that will be on some of our U25s and not on others, depending on what.
On the prototype. Yeah. Some had it, some didn't.
That's really specific. That's like really getting into the nitty gritty.
Exactly.
Wow.
That's what we do.
Yeah.
That's great. And
I was surprised on the exhaust, because I know on the phase stuff, like when I was a kid, I remember Dad saying like the trough around the exhaust was part of a later phase or this or that. But then when I see the information you guys have put out and looking at prototype pictures, that like that exhaust is just the oval shape with nothing around it, and then a later one has got like a metal tray or that trough around it. But I don't think it's more a road specific, isn't it, than a phase feature? Maybe you can't really like say only phase 2 had this or only phase 3 had that. It's kind of all over the place, isn't it?
It is, and we've actually tooled. We're going into tooling on multiple different versions depending on what the prototype was. So
there's at least 3.
Yep.
If I can find the camera, there it is. At least 3.
Yep. This is the Frisco version here. If I scroll through a bit, we might see some other ones. I believe this is this one. I think this is Erie.
And there you can see the tub the exhaust sits in.
Yep.
Now, Jordan, is this a pre-production sample picture or a CAD drawing?
This is a CAD drawing. This is a rendering. This is not like nothing's actually the tooling hasn't actually been cut yet. These are very early. So again, if there's anyone that sees any inaccuracies or kind of things that need to be changed, these are still in progress.
See, they tell me that now, Ken. I have 5 pages in the September issue that I sent to press this week, and I always put that these are pre-production examples that may see revisions or modifications. Otherwise, I hear that after and like,
That's right.
It's amazing how much you miss, considering you've been looking at it for 6 months or a year,
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden something jumps out at you like, yeah, missed that. We have to fix it.
There you can see another version. I believe this was a very early, I think, version of the Santa Fe units. There's a couple of details that aren't correct for Santa Fe, but you can see a different version of the exhaust there. I might be corrected if this is the same.
That's the taller exhaust.
Yeah, exactly.
And in a tub.
Yeah.
And are all the other than the high hoods, are all the low nose in the first group? Do they have the brake wheel? Because I know some did have the crank on the nose, but I don't know where that changes, or is that a road specific?
I don't remember any with a crank. I'll have to.
I think these were all brake wheel.
Yeah,
right.
The ones we're doing on this release. So.
And this may be a good. It's a little more complicated, but maybe for Craig or Tony. Ricardo is asking, accordingly, with the side doors, those U25B were powered by the 16V cylinder engines. Do you guys know offhand? Yes.
The FDL 16 cylinder.
Okay.
And it was, I think, a Bessemer Cooper prime mover, or at least they worked with Bessemer Cooper to develop it.
Wow.
If I remember correctly.
Yep.
And what are you guys doing for this? I assume this is going to be see-through. But what's going to be inside? Is mechanism going to be in the way? And first of all, what I assume those are two fans on the sides. What's the big round thing in the center? Like, what does all that do, and how much of that will be on the model?
This is all going to be part of the model, road name specific as well, whether or not it has dynamics or not. We've got the fans. There's the I guess Craig, you might know a little bit better than I do, but there's the big fan that's in there. The mechanism for the model is hidden.
It's a thing.
Yeah, it's the thing.
I don't remember the technical name.
There's a different view of it there. This is the dynamic brake equipped version, as I recall.
Well, the dynamics are a series of grids that would be in front of this, so
yes,
we don't see them in this view.
Yeah, if I scroll kind of through here, let me see if I can find one. You can there's a non-dynamic kind of.
That's non-dynamic.
Yeah. I think, do we have an image?
There, that's dynamic.
But it kind of shows you where the dynamic resistors would be.
Yeah, there's like 5 squares that stagger.
Stagger a bit. I think that's what the Great Northern, because of the hooded air horn.
Yep, this is
right.
The GM version.
Yeah, that's Great Northern, definitely. And Burlington Northern.
Right.
And Mark had a question, Jordan. Yep. Have you thought of putting a smoke unit in them?
We haven't really looked at doing smoke units before. We did do that with our steam generator car years and years back. It's not something we're looking at doing right now, but I mean, we might try doing that someday though. We'll keep it in mind.
Gotcha. And Jim also had a good question. How long does it take roughly to go from CAD drawings to production? Jim is planning when they're coming out.
From where we are right now, we haven't started cutting tooling yet. That should be happening probably in August. We've still got some detail revisions to kind of go over. That takes about, tooling takes about, so depending on the complexity of the project, maybe 70, 80 days. That's the initial toolings, and then we get those, we review them, we see how, like, it's quite an extended process. We'll set an order deadline once we're happy with the tooling. So likely we'll probably be looking at an order deadline. Oh, I don't know. It's maybe too soon to say at the moment, but maybe towards the end of the year, maybe early next year.
Wow. Now, when you get the tooling, do you have to like go to a different factory and then bring them back in and like ship them back and forth? Because those have to be huge.
The actual samples, they send us samples and we pretty thoroughly inspect them. We'll paint some up in some cases for actually filming a video or something like that.
Wow.
And then if we're satisfied, we let them know if there's any corrections. That's all done by computer.
Cool.
We communicate that, and then they kind of make those corrections to the tooling, and then we get ready for production.
Wow.
What's the plan? What's the plan for like the grab irons and the handrails? I assume like wire, but like the ladder in the back and the handrails, will they be that like engineering plastic, or has that been decided?
That's a good question. I'm not sure exactly. I know Matt has been working on this as of late. He would have been here, but he's actually on the way to Spring Creek right now to the show. So,
Well, what would you prefer, Tony?
I'll talk to Matt this weekend.
Yeah. We'll be able to clear that up. Generally, we like to use wire where we can. I think I'm not sure if this is kind of an engineering plastic. We like to do that quite often to get that kind of finer nut bolt washer casting detail. So yeah, we're still kind of in the works on.
And I saw someone mention the RS11, and it was so cool because it had the illuminated control stand. And I think that will be a feature on the U25s as well. So the control stand will light up. That is so cool.
I believe that's being incorporated as well. And on top of that, we're incorporating step lights as well. So at the four corners, we will have, you can kind of see it there. The step lights will be in the prototype specific location.
Nice.
Speaking of lighting features, I'll see if I can find a good image here. But we are also doing the class lights, operating class lights. You can kind of see it there on the high nose. These were an interesting part to develop because it's right on the corner of the nose, which is quite difficult for tooling. But we are doing the class lights operating on all of the high nose and low nose units.
Wow.
Yeah, getting the class lights at the proper angle is tricky, to say the least.
Yeah. So normally that would be the scene where your mold kind of the edge of the mold would be. So I'm not as knowledgeable about that part of the process, but it is difficult to have them on the corner there.
Well, as I understand it, and hopefully I'm not telling tales out of school, a typical mold is 4 slides. You know, the sides move in and out, the ends move in and out. To do these class lights, we had to do an 8-slide mold.
Wow.
Yeah.
A lot more complicated.
Yeah, that was always a shortcoming on the Stewart as they moved them around to the face.
Yeah,
right.
Somehow, maybe that's why Lindbergh never made it, but the one I have from Lindbergh has it on the corners. And it's like, wow,
Really?
how did they do that in the 60s? But and it's a sort of multi-part shell, but yeah, that was the first HO Collector edition 5 years ago. So to show you what a U25 nut, yeah, that was the first cover.
And I'll admit, I had no idea that they were considering doing a U25 back then.
Yeah.
And now, Tony, with the old U-boats, do you keep it and put them side by side, or do you trade up and go with the sleeker, newer design?
You know, Ken, at some point I have to get a storage facility because it just keeps taking over rooms in my house. So no, there is no, oh, this is a better DVD player than my old one. No, I got to have every version of it.
Yeah.
Then when you do reviews or you do stories, you can say, here's why this is different, better, whatever.
Yeah.
And so yeah, you got to have them all. Yeah.
You also got 2 different magazines, the collector edition and the Model Railroad News with the new stuff. So it's
well, and Diesel Era now I'm doing Union Pacific U25s in our third quarter.
There you go.
So yeah, we'll have more coverage coming. Now this I assume is all going to be plastic, and this is so neat. This is what the early ones put. I think that's the air tank got put on the side, whereas like standard, the later 25s and all the way through the rest of the U-boat series, you had the 2 tanks between the trucks and the fuel tank.
Yep.
Right.
Yeah,
and can you go back to that earlier one for a second, Jordan? That air tank is, when we produce it, we'll have a slight angle to it. It's lower at one end than the other.
Yeah, wow. It slants a bit there. And this was also a curved tank. The front end of it was curved, where it was more was that kind of more typical GE angle that you see on the later ones.
Wow.
Yeah, the flat surfaces.
Exactly.
I mean, it's amazing. The more you look at these, I mean, Ken, I don't know how they do it, and it would be one of those I wouldn't be able to sleep once the model came out, waiting for somebody to go, "Oh, you missed this! I can't believe you didn't see that." Because every time I look,
the truth is, we don't know how we do it.
I mean, it's tough. And it's
not easy.
Amazing, yeah.
And Rahel had a good question. Is any of the high nose units do they run as engine compartment as the front of the locomotive, or as customary for Norfolk and Western and Southern railroads?
The short hood, even though it was tall, was the front of the locomotive, like on most Jeep 7s, Jeep 9s. So the control stand was on the same side of the cab as on the low nosed units.
Gotcha.
It's just in the early days, they were kind of copying what EMD was doing with the Jeeps. They went with a high hood and then realized, oh, we can make it lower. Yeah. Probably about the same time EMD was starting to do that.
It's kind of a shame that neither N&W or Southern bought U25s. Like N&W gets some from Wabash, but they were, loan.
They bought one.
They got that one that was that wreck replacement or whatever. Yeah.
Right.
But this would have been interesting to see, like a later phase production, if it still would have had kind of that refrigerator face to it, or if it would have been different. But yeah, the only high hoods are the demos, UP, and Frisco.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
see a lot of that later on with our B36, which was a high nose a locomotive, but they still ran it in typical NS or Southern NS fashion, long hood forward on the B36s there.
Now on this project, so for a U-boat, do you guys get nervous, like how the how well it will be received, because this is a little more of a unique project? Mm-hmm. So I'm curious, like, do you guys get nervous about doing certain runs like this or engines? Because it's a big investment to kind of make a engine like this. So how does that process look? And like, you raise your hand in a round table and say, I like it, or does Jason say just, I like it, we're doing it?
we kind of like to think we know what we're doing, but we don't always.
I started pushing for this a few years back, probably 3 or 4 years ago.
Okay.
Because there really is, there's been a need for this for a long time, I think. A lot of kind of second generation high horsepower diesels, road diesels. You've kind of got a lot of guys that model like the 50s, and we've got a ton of stuff for the 70s, SD40-2, stuff like that. But the 60s have really been there's a big market there that hasn't really been tapped into yet. So that's I think this is a big it has a lot of possibility to make a lot of people happy, I think.
And
hey,
let
me interject for a second. I got hold of Matt, and his car went into a ditch somewhere in Missouri while he was answering me. He said that the grab irons, he hasn't decided yet if they're going to be wire or plastic.
Tony, here's your chance, Tony.
Yeah,
I think we're staying at the same motel for that show we're going to. I'll take him out to dinner, and I'll get all of those.
Yeah, there's a good close-up of the dynamic brake grills, and they. It almost looks like some graphic from the 60s with the staggered,
exactly.
Googie architecture.
Mm-hmm. That's without
it was so popular then.
That's without the cover, the grill, of course, over top of it. So
yeah, and the grill itself, there's 3 or 4 different variants. You've got a screen, you've got a far grill that Rock Island put on some, which was stainless steel with slots punched into it. Mm-hmm. And then you also had corrugated screen that Southern Pacific and some other roads had.
Yep.
So, we told Jason it runs on the Kingston sub. Yeah. Everything we do ran on the Kingston sub.
That's the real.
He's gullible enough to believe it.
Yeah, that's the real. When you're having these meetings at Rapido, if you can say in the middle of the meeting, well, Jason, that did operate on the Kingston sub. Boom! It's over the top. It's going to happen.
Fortunately, we've filled most of what ran on the Kingston sub, or quite a bit of it anyway. So we're getting to the point where we can branch out and make a whole bunch of other interesting stuff. So.
And I will say this about Rapido: you guys have definitely grown as a company, where you've grown, adding key team members who really have years of experience in the train industry and the knowledge. And, just by looking at this CAD drawing, you could see the amount of detail, thought, precision that has really gone into it. So I really believe your projects have just gotten better and better and keeps on improving. So I think we're all excited to continue to see all these new projects and announcements. And Tony was right when he said you guys are just announcing product after product, and you guys actually do have a nice team of really knowledgeable train enthusiasts, just making hit after hit. So really cool stuff.
I had somebody in the last week or so message me on Facebook. They'd seen one of your videos because the videos Rapido does, Ken, where they do their little joking things. Somebody said that place looks like it would be. It's not only trains, but it looks like they have such fun. And I said, it really does, doesn't it? Yeah, I said it looks like a very fun environment.
No, it's deadly serious business. We don't put humor into our videos. I don't know why people think that.
Beyond just the of us too, we have a great group of people here, but we also do rely very heavily on other modelers and rail fans in the community. So we really appreciate all the help we get on every project from.
We do get a lot of help from people who do not work for us, who are more than happy to contribute. So
exactly,
that's awesome,
and we appreciate it. We need the help.
Yes.
Right. And
amazingly, we don't know everything. We know a lot, but there's a little bit we don't know.
Exactly. So.
And just a couple more questions popping up. Ken's Back Shop. These are actually HO scale U25s. And John Ballatine said, I am very pleased to see the U25B project. Well done, Rapido. Question, will the body be easily removable from the frame? Do you know?
Absolutely.
Awesome.
With a crowbar.
Yeah. Just like how I mentioned before, just like our newly tooled version of the RS11s, which are kind of in the works right now. The body on these, you remove the couple of screws, just take the coupler or the draft gearbox out, and it pretty much lifts right off.
And there's no connections into any of the lights. It's the LED boards back there. I love that. That's so nice to not have to try to tinker with all that together. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. And that's all being designed right into the model. So you lift it up and everything is just kind of in place.
And then John also wants to know, can you please bring up the low nose Santa Fe version as well?
Let's see if I can find it here. I think that's the New Haven GN. That is. There we go. Now this is, of course, keep in mind this is an early rendering. There's some details here which aren't necessarily right for the Santa Fe. It's got sunshades on it and it's got a Sinclair antenna. We're changing that. I think Santa Fe just used a rain gutter on the cab, and they used a can type antenna on the cab roof. So this is overall. This has the battery box configuration, which is unique to Santa Fe for this release, and a lot of the other details in place.
Cool. And John wants to know, sorry I missed it, did you start by laser scanning a prototype?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Really?
In 100-degree weather. It was fun.
Wow. Okay.
Well, my daughter got to operate it, so she loved it.
Yeah.
She was my cameraman that day.
At the Southern California Railway Museum, they were very kind to let us in. This was it was a year ago now. This is last 20
June 10th and 11th. It was my wife's birthday.
Yeah,
one of those. Oh. And we were there for 2 days measuring the U25 that they have and the E8A that they've got. That was measured at the same time.
Yeah, I figured we killed with one stone and got them both done at the same time.
And
they've got a few other things we want to measure too.
Yeah, a year ago. This was happening a year ago. So I've got this on my list now. I'm going to go through all these museums. I'm going to cozy up to everybody that works at these museums and say, hey, if you ever have anybody come over that sets up like laser scanning equipment, can you give me a quick phone call, tell me who they are, and take a quick picture? What are they working on? Because imagine if somebody told me this a year ago. There's some guy here, and he's over at our U25B. Oh, really? Wow. Yeah.
Well, they were basically closed for COVID, but they had some volunteers in there, and they let us in. So big thanks to them.
Yep. And like I mentioned before, it is a Southern Pacific U25, and we will do Southern Pacific U25s at some point.
Cool.
What?
The next release. So
nobody told me.
Very cool.
Is there a market for SP U25s? I don't know.
Maybe. We'll see.
There's always a market for Southern Pacific.
Oh, you're not telling me anything.
It's actually become one of our well, I might be a little bit biased, but SP is one of our top sellers.
Yeah, and I live in Southern California, so duh.
Yeah.
And then Mark actually has, you guys make a fantastic product. I'm looking forward to these. Are they due out next year or timeline, Jordan?
It's still, we're probably looking at least a year out. Like I said, the tooling will probably take a couple months, and that's going to start in most likely in August. So we're going to aim to have a sample towards the end of this year, or at least for the big Springfield show in January. It is a big project, so production will probably usually takes maybe 4 or 5 months. That can vary, of course. That's just a rough estimate. So probably next year about this time. But don't take my word for it. We'll kind of see how the project rolls out in terms of that. So
I think it's that you guys are still waiting on the big decision of the handrails, so it may take a couple of months.
that's the big so.
And there's a question that flashed up here that you skipped, Ken. Somebody asked if we're going to do these in N scale. And Jordan, I think I know the answer, but
I don't know right now.
That's the answer I thought of.
Maybe anything's possible. We're actually in the process of doing a lot of. We've already announced a lot of N scale projects that we already were doing in HO. So
yeah,
that's something to keep in mind, that there are some HO projects that we are kind of very seriously thinking of doing it in.
Yeah, I'd like to see these in N myself.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's probably makes sense for you guys to do multiple scales with versions, because you already have the research, the CAD drawing. So you just shrink it down and make it a little bite size, and there you go.
We wish it was that easy, but it is easier. Let's put it that way. But there are still things that have to be redesigned when you scale down to N scale.
Right.
Exactly.
The level of detail, the drive, all that fun stuff.
It's really complicated stuff. I mean, for people that think it's easy creating these toy trains, there's got to be so much work, research, time, effort, and going back and forth with China. It's just a lot, and it's just amazing what you guys are able to create. It really is.
Well, thank you.
And then these will be standard DC, and then what's the options going to be on the DCC? Who's going to do the sound for it?
These will be ESU V5 decoders.
Okay.
That we'll be going with that for this project, and of course DC will be available as well for all road numbers and road names. Do we want to have? Sorry, go ahead.
Are we going to do NDM? If I have anything to do with it, we will.
There's a lot. There's a lot we need to do. I mean, there's so many railroads that own these. I mean, C&O, L&N, obviously SP. There's so Wabash. So many roads that we can do,
and the later roads that pick them up, family lines, and But if there's a road you want to see or a model you want to see, I'll put a plug in now. If you go to our website, there is a place where you can enter information on what you want to see made. And we do read those, and it's pretty cool. It's set up so that it compiles them. We don't have to go through everything and say, oh, somebody asked for that engine here and way down here. It compiles it, so we just look at a glance and go, look, 12 people want that locomotive. Or 8 people want that road name, and it streamlines the process tremendously. So if you want Mexican roads, go there and let us know.
Yes, absolutely. Well,
that I'm not the only one doing it.
Well, one of the things that I used to spend seriously quite a bit of time on doing every day is we would get 15, 20 product requests, just an email every day. So it was taking up a huge chunk of my time, just responding to them, like saying, thank you. Of course, we appreciate the suggestions, but the suggestion form really helps us kind of make it easier for people to send those in. Kind of,
it's a great help. And let me point out one thing: one request per submission, because otherwise it goofs up how it sorts. So if you want to request 3 road names, 3 models, 1 model, 2 road names, you have to do it 2, 3, 4 times. But it doesn't take long. It's pretty streamlined.
Very cool. And Tony, I'm not sure if you want to show some real prototypes.
Yeah, come on, Tony.
All right, here we go. Here we go.
I figured we had enough time with the renders by now.
Here we go.
Let's see.
Don't make me do it.
There we are.
Ooh,
There's the
that one
all-
we're not doing.
No. We're going to back up just a little bit here. This is like 1959. These were the pair of test beds, and they are very similar to those high hoods. But if you look, you'll notice the front pilot. There's no way to walk around the front
What
of the
road
unit.
name is that?
There is a door on the end.
Yeah, there's a door in its face. This was a General Electric demonstrator pair
Oh, okay. Wow.
to try out the engines, and one of these actually survived and sat in Erie for years and years. I think it makes it into the 90s, and they would use it
least.
like test paint and do other things too. But this is kind of the sort of start to the story. Now this, Rapido will be doing this. This is a real demonstrator. This is on the Colorado and Southern in 1961. So the U25s would have been out. I assume this is probably like on lease or as a loaner or something.
And you can see the angle on that air reservoir.
Yes. Oh, yeah, you can. Yeah.
So,
And that's a neat.
again,
I like
we looked at these for a year and we missed that. And
and
then
you start catching these things. Yeah. And
a friend of mine pointed it out and I had to slap him. But we'll do it.
and this is kind of the half and half scheme with this was the set of four that I can't remember if they go to Frisco or UP. I think they go to Frisco. UP. Okay.
UP.
And
The low nose was UP 633. The others are 634, 5, and 6.
That low nose unit was very. It was it was a little bit of.
Can you tell I'm fun at a party?
But this demonstrator set, you are doing the units behind the low nose. So there'll be two different schemes of the red and white demonstrator, which there's two of the units I got to buy right there.
I was just going to say, Tony.
That was the first low nose.
Yeah.
But that was the first low nose U25 was that demonstrator. It had the early style pilots and step wells, but the later fuel tank and car body. And we will offer that later in both demo and Union Pacific because it was a unique engine. But the way the model's constructed, we can make it.
And, I don't think we mentioned that, but yeah, these early ones have these odd tall loops to the handrail and straight up steps with this kind of curved face that's not like anything EMD GE ever did later.
Yeah.
And so because of those loops, those will have plastic handrails.
Yeah.
Then we get to the Santa Fe's. I think, as I said, before we went on, I have everything but I think New Haven stuff. And this is some of the pictures. In fact, you guys use this picture from Kevin's collection.
Nice.
But isn't that pretty cool? And a lot of people love the war bonnet so much, Ken. But this, as delivered, this bookends, I think, is an awesome looking scheme.
It's very classic.
Yeah.
And we will do at some point. We will do the yellow bonnets as well as they appeared in the 70s.
And we'll also do the bookend scheme in the later numbers, the 6600s.
Absolutely.
Right.
These are awesome photos, Tony.
This is Argentine Yard in Kansas City. This is Kevin's dad, James Udaley, took this in January of '66. So this would have been a few years old at the time. This is a nice shot. The profile of that U25 with its round nose and everything, I think is just such from almost any angle. This is a nice shot. This is Kansas City in the mid 60s as well. And I can't remember, I don't know if this is one of the numbers you're doing. It seems like I used it in Model Railroad News, but it shows that square exhaust with the tall square. And did you say like this doesn't have the cut-in step? The step is actually hanging
That
out?
looks like the added-on step.
Okay.
I mean,
it really is a nice
not
shot.
that they forgot it and added it on, but it's just the way it's constructed.
And this shows that dynamic real clearly that this like checkerboard or whatever pattern goes away. And the other thing too, and I think I asked you this, Craig, as these are being announced, this is a phase 2 with short doors then tall doors. Is that right? Or how does that go?
I believe that would make it, well, the phases are a railfan thing. And to tell you the truth, I'm not sure. The high noses, I guess, would be phase 1. But yeah, this would be the early phase, probably phase 1, phase 1B, however it's denoted with the high latches. And then they realized people had a hard time reaching up there. So they moved them down to a more reasonable height.
Wow.
GE moved them, not Santa Fe.
It's a nice looking engine. They're really nice.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You want me to get you one, Ken? I can get you one. I'm buying them at Train World. I'll get you one.
Please, I think we got to up the order, Tony.
Now he's ordering 2.
Quite honestly, when you think of U-boats, I don't know. I feel like it's a toss-up sometimes, but these are really sharp. And I think the way you guys do your projects, where it's so detail-orientated, it's not going to be just a generic U-boat like the same ones that Tony has, the older ones. But these are brand new, sleek with the high-end details. I think it's going to be a lot like your RDC project, where I feel like people were hesitant because there were so many RDCs on the market and it's been done before. But I think once people actually see the details and see the size of it and, just how beautiful they are, I think you guys are going to hit a home run with it.
Absolutely. That's how the RDC ended up. That was, I believe, one of our most successful projects in terms of operating kind of locomotive or passenger car.
That's because Tony had a money shot on Model Railroad News of the RDC. I remember that, and it was spectacular. It made it look beautiful.
Yeah.
And we moved to the Erie Lackawannas here, and I think this is as delivered with Erie Lackawanna in maroon up in the gray. I think isn't your model is that where they moved Erie Lackawanna down into the maroon band. So you're doing like I think revised paint.
I believe so.
Or later order, I forget. This changed about the time, and this shows the door latches are short here. You go short, tall, short on this, so that's at next phase, I think, in production as well.
Yep, exactly.
And this is a 75 shot in Binghamton, New York. This is another thing about these when you think about, because this was followed by the 28, the 30, the 33, the 36 before they went to the -7 series. But you think of how quickly some of these U-boats came and went in the later years, but these 25s make it deep into the 1980s.
Oh yeah.
They had amazing longevity when you look at some of the other things from GE later that didn't last that long.
Yeah. And of course you've got all of SP's various efforts to keep theirs going.
Rebuilding them, yeah.
The MK rebuilds and into the 80s. So.
And Tony, if you go back one picture, this picture actually looks like a model railway. It looks like some Walters kit buildings in the background.
Exactly, yeah.
Merchants Row 3 or something.
Exactly.
Really cool. Really neat.
Here's another early set. And then Erie, I know, gets crazy with what part of the roof line is black, and the cab roof there is black. But again, these are the earlier ones, so I'm not sure how it looks like these later ones might be all gray, but that gets into a lot of minutia on those. This is 1976, so early Conrail days. That's a U33B, Penn Central behind it. And I always like how these get mixed up. You can see there's the radio equipped logo, but these doors got switched. So that should be on the left, that should be on the right.
Fun modeling project for someone.
Yeah. And there again's another earlier with Erie up in the gray. I really like this scheme. It's one I think gets overlooked a bit, but I think it's a really nice looking scheme.
And of course, we'll do that scheme at some point as well. And there's so many different versions. I think we've calculated there's like 40 different versions or something like that if you look at all the road names and combinations. So.
Really cool stuff.
That's one of the later phase units there. You can see the split front windshield.
Oh, yeah. And see, it's got the crank in the nose. Exactly. So, yeah, that's a very late. None of the first run from you guys is this. This is at least, what, a phase 3?
I think it's phase 4.
4?
Yeah, and then that's when they also went to the early phase U28Bs with that same body style. It's a great shot.
Yeah, it really is a nice, and the nose with that Erie Lackawanna logo, really unique. You don't see that logo often.
Especially in the Northeast, these were everywhere in the 60s and 70s.
Yeah. That's cool.
This is the job I need, Ken. Look at this. They paid a guy to stand there and hold that flag. I could do that. I'd be on my feet. I'd get a little exercise. I'd get some sun. I could take my dog with me. This would be it.
That flag is heavier than it looks.
Oh, I knew there'd be a downside. I think this is Great Northern got them, and they're in the simplified Empire Builder Omaha Orange and Pullman Green.
Yep.
And you're going to do this version of them. And what GN did get some repainted into Big Sky Blue in the late 60s before BN. And what both, I think the CB and Qs would have a light in the nose, but both had that kind of hood over the air horn, which is an interesting feature.
Yep, yep.
And they kept that into the BN days too.
Yeah.
Beautiful.
Now my Penn Centrals are all over the place. Like this one, I think you can see the white sill is coming through from being a New York Central. I'd have to look at the numbers. You guys are doing, I believe Penn Central is X New Haven, and I do have a couple of those.
For this release, they will be X New Haven. That simplifies a lot of the tooling, so we will do the New York Central units, and we will do all the Penzies and stuff like that later as well. Yeah, you can see how the paint really faded off there on the sills.
Oh, and in this photo, notice the equipment box up there on the side of the nose. We will be producing that for these engines, and there's a slightly different version on the New Haven engines. We'll be doing that version as well.
Is this an X Penzi?
It would have been Conrail days. This is April '76. It's in Madison, Illinois, the east side of the St. Louis area with terminal switcher. I'd have to, I think with that, I don't know if they put boxes on them maybe for Penn Central for the control. I'd have to look at my numbers. I don't
They
think
might have, but
I don't think I used this picture in the magazine, so no, I don't think it's one of the New Havens. Hey, when you guys are doing cars.
No, it's not New Haven.
It's not. How about look at that old Imperial sitting there, Ken? I need that car. Man.
Well, now Rapido's making cars now, so
yeah, all the Chevys. Oh my goodness, yeah, I need those too.
Not to go off on a tangent, but our first vehicle has been extremely successful. So we're working on some other ones already. So.
I'm excited by it, man. Those Chevys, that's going to be fun.
Yeah.
Here's a New Haven. This
Although technically, Jordan, Locomotive is a vehicle.
Yes, yes. Actually, this is a really neat shot because the first freight car is a Southern Pacific.
Oh, it's one of
that's our SB box car, which is actually in production right now. We should see those arriving before the end of the year, anyways. Probably towards November, December.
Tony, what's the orange on the sill?
That's the McGinnis, and the one stanchion up front you see, it was in New Haven McGinnis paint, so it was red, white,
they
and
painted
black.
it over.
Yeah, somehow leaking through already on that. And then a U, probably 25C. I don't think that's a 28C phase one, but next to it. And and speaking of that boxcar, I got to send you guys, I got some Amtrak pictures. I scanned the other day of Amtrak boxes for you.
And wait, go back, Tony. Just a quick question, Jordan. Have you guys ever thought about doing like a one-off run, like in conjunction with your big U25 run, where you do special like paint details like this, where it shows the orange on the Penn Central, and because this is pretty unique, Tony. You have this picture of how it was actually painted over, and sometimes people think the color's off or wrong, but a lot of these engines were repainted. And I think it's pretty cool that it shows that orange. I'm not sure, Jordan, if that would be like something that's doable or.
Absolutely, anything's possible. Especially if there was a dealer out there that wanted to do a custom run.
And now you're making a collectible item that'll be another piece that I'll don't help him. This is now the phase ones. This is amazing stuff. Frisco and UP got production examples of these, as well as some of the demonstrators were. And I think these always just have as a little kid, I always called them a refrigerator face because it reminds me of those old, whatever refrigerators. Mm-hmm. And now you guys I saw made a change to this. This is a January '68 Jim Boyd picture from Kevin Udaley's collection. And this would have, I think all of the high hoods obviously are early enough. They came in black and yellow. And then the later Frisco U25s did, in fact, they introduced the Mandarin orange and white scheme, but this is a repaint. And then they added these like reflective stripes. And I saw this was one of the updates that you guys put out in the last couple of weeks that you were changing to that.
We're doing unit 803 in that with that unique striping. I think another unit was it 805 also got that, but we're not doing that unit in this
And you do have some like this too, because some didn't get it. There's 804, and that's 1975.
And also on that striping, it faded pretty badly over the years. So you'll see other photos where it's almost pink or very, very light. And it started out the way it looked in that one photo.
Yeah, and this was as delivered for those. So all the Friscoes in this first run are repaints to the Mandarin orange and white. And then that's a great shot. Train crossing there.
We will absolutely do these versions too. I don't know when, but we will do them at some point.
And as an aside, the black ones, high nose, used to come to California, to LA on the Santa Fe. Chard Walker has a photo of a whole consist of high nose U25s in Frisco black at Summit. So if you're modeling Santa Fe in the early 60s, you could buy these and run them on your layout.
Did the repaints ever make it out west there like that?
I think that service stopped by the time they went to the Mandarin orange and white.
Okay. That's a neat shot there.
And I noticed some of these, I don't know what, this almost looks like a Chessie rock guard type pilot. I don't know if that was added later, because I don't think those were on it originally.
Yeah, I believe it was.
Yeah, might have.
So those are added.
Retrofit in the early 70s, maybe.
Yeah. This is 1970.
There's the original footboards.
Yes, yeah. This is 78 in Cleveland on Conrail, and Greg Summers told me it's obviously not Frisco anymore. It was GE, and they were basically like loaners or lease units. Yeah. So again, if you model other things, you always have to be aware. If you see there's a little dinky GE logo, maybe you got put there, and you can see how that striping totally faded away and is even peeled off a bit.
Yeah. Also, this striping didn't wrap around the side of the nose as far as it did on 803.
And when those last until what, 80, 81? I'm thinking.
I don't think the high hoods off of Frisco all went on B or -7 units in the mid 70s, but there is a group that made it to BN, and I've been working on that for a diesel era piece. And we knew of one, but I'm now up to 3 Frisco units fully painted Cascade green. And they're all off the roster by 81, so it's there's no more than about a year.
Wait, they painted some Frisco units Cascade green?
I've got 3 of them. Yeah.
Huh. That's 3 more than I had.
I knew of one.
I'm glad to hear that.
I knew of one, and I started scanning our collection of all that stuff. And of course, there's a lot of them patched where they're still, with just BN lettered in black. But yeah, so they should be on the site for you, Craig, to take a look at. But yeah.
Oh no, I have one in green. I stand corrected.
That's a neat.
Oh yeah, that looks neat.
Sorry,
I'm looking at a different photo.
I think that's Lawrence or Topeka. I can't remember which. I think is where that is, and behind it is the RS-27, which is what Alco was offering when GE brought out the U-boat, and suddenly the game changed and the Century Series had to be introduced. So that's the last and kind of a poor selling RS finale for Alco because the U-boats basically outpaced them.
That's a cool engine. That's going to be really popular.
Is that maybe an old Regal, I think, fastback?
It's a car.
Yeah, it's GM of something.
Pontiac or something?
And on these UP high nose engines, this one's got condensed lettering. The last one did not.
Oh, yeah.
Also, the number boards could be gray. They could be yellow. The stripe would end and not go around the end. Sometimes the stripe went around the end. There's so many variants.
Even some road numbers. You look at one road number, and it's different based on the year. They would change it every 6 months or 8 months. It seemed like in some cases. Just look at the number boards on 629; they're all yellow there.
Yeah.
If you go back one, it's totally different in the previous shot. So.
And Jordan, on these engines, is there a certain road name right now that seems to be, outpacing or road name?
We're still pretty early.
Okay.
Generally, UP is always a big or a huge seller.
Right.
We're anticipating that's probably going to be the best seller, but
right.
we'll still be we'll get those final numbers closer to the order deadline. when
Gotcha.
it's going to be set. So
Oh, there's that RS-27 and a U50.
Yeah.
God, that's a neat shot.
Isn't that a nice shot? That's Topeka in 1965.
that's like
And then the fireman decided to ruin the photo by hanging out.
Well, he's hanging out the cab almost like somebody said, hey, Rapido's going to do that, even the high hood. And he was like, what?
Yeah.
They're going to do what? Hang on. He stopped
So-
the train.
So now we need to come out with crewmen that hang out the window like that, huh?
yes, absolutely.
I think
There's
you
the
got
grade
to
number
put
board.
a figure of Tony in there.
Yeah.
Come on over. We'll 3D scan you.
And yeah, these went every place. This is a Jim Boyd shot from '69, and I assume in IC, I think, was one of the many pool partners east of
Yeah.
Omaha to Chicago for UP, and so this is probably somewhere on the IC in the Chicago area.
Go back to that one again. Yeah, and also notice the hatch on top of the short hood on these engines. And
sand
as
hatch?
far as I know, it was just that's a big hatch, bigger than sand.
Oh, the
That
big,
one.
yeah. the
I'm
big-
assuming it's just so they could service the toilet in there.
Wow.
It was not for steam generators because none of these had steam generators.
Right.
It's been very difficult to find photos of the roof of these units too.
And then we got a comment from James Wright. I think Rapido thinks that because they are geographically located above the USA, they have to be above U.S. model train manufacturers. You guys are killing it. Keep it up.
And I don't know who that guy is, but
He's
And
the
this- I'm
biggest
not-
YouTuber.
I'm not sure if this is one of these got traded to Rock Island and turned into a slug, and the only thing you can really tell is it kept this pilot. It got blue and white rock paint, and I think it's this one. And this is basically like it's Silvis or something in 1973, and you can see that it's kind of in its final days. And again, here's more minutia. This is 72, and yet this has got no UP on the nose.
the stripe wraps around though.
Stripe wraps all the way around, which we didn't see on the others. Gray number boards, which some had yellow. I mean, yeah, wow.
Yeah, Tony, did CP Rail lease some of the UP units?
I don't know that I have any. I don't know if I have any pictures of, and none of the Canadian roads bought them, which
Okay.
I don't think. I mean, I'm pretty sure they didn't, and that's
But
surprising.
we're telling Jason that Canadian National leased them.
I was going to say I didn't want to really say that because I don't want to jinx the project and him go, wait a minute, there's no CN or CP. So yeah, I don't. Let's not say that too loud.
The big thing on CP is they did lease some UP power in around 61, 62, but that was mostly FA1s that they were on their way out at UP, so CP picked them up for a while in Canada.
So this is a photo for guys who don't weather.
Yes, this would be me. This is I take it out of the box, I set it on the track, I look at it, I power it up. I might run it around a couple of times, but then put it back in the box and don't knock anything off of it. Yeah. So this is the mint condition example right out of the box.
That's very fresh.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That one's got a 6-panel dynamic.
This is May.
That's one of the higher.
I may have found another variant.
This says it's May of '68, but I don't know that it's not. It's almost got to be a copy slide. There's no way that's May of '68. I can't believe it would have been repainted. Would it
Fresh
still
from
been
the,
that?
paint shop.
They might have.
I mean, I don't know, but I think this is the cover shot I'm using on the third quarter diesel era. Is that picture? But boy, what a beauty! I mean,
I believe there was two distinct versions of the UP high noses. I think there was the, as I recall, up to 629, and then above 629, they were slightly different. I think there were different trucks under them under the earlier ones, as I recall. And that's the version that we're doing is the ones up to 629 in this release.
and is that? I assume that's a re-rail frog. I've seen that on a lot of them.
Yep.
Yeah.
And then Tony Ryle was asking about the latch. Could that be made to locate the steam generators? Do you know?
In
No,
theory,
none of them had steam generators.
I've never heard of a U-boat being equipped with for passenger unless some of the Mexican roads did, but they didn't get any high hoods. So
Okay.
I don't know. And, EMD always put them there, but wasn't like on, I think you could buy any I don't know about the 25, but as you get to the 28s forward, I think that was always an option, but it sat back here behind the cab. Like Santa Fe's U28 CGs, it's here.
it's like the RS11s. DWP in their RS11s put the dynamics in the nose, whereas everybody else put it over the engine. long.
And Tony, not to stretch this out because we're running over an hour already, but what year was that slide you were wondering if it was really taken? 68?
Because the one of it being brand new says May of 68, and it might have been the processing date.
It was when it was repainted. They lasted until 72, the high nose units.
So that probably is all right. Wow.
And that looked like a very a later paint job in that there were differences from the earlier paint job. So
the only other place I was trying to date it was this one shot of the rock power going by. Oop, did I do it?
Yeah, but the rock power could be.
But I mean, again, like nothing could be newer than that's a U28.
Yeah,
and and that's repainted. And those come with the chevrons on the nose and no yellow.
Could also be a late U25.
But either way adds credence to it could be 68 because if that's a late 25 or whatever, it's again mid 60s. So that could be. But again, looking at this, you think, man, that could be 1960 because it looks brand new. It's like, no,
the lettering is later, so I think that's a good date.
On that note, speaking of Rock Island, it's going to be interesting when we actually decide to do Rock Island U25s because I think they have 7 or 8 different paint scheme variations.
Wow. And detail variants too, like those cool far grills.
Yeah, exactly. It's like which one do you choose to do? Because
all of them, but not at once.
And Rahel was mentioning, yes, the only U36 CP were manufactured for Mexico with the steam generators just on the back of the locomotive cab. So. Yeah. I did a lot of good information from all of you guys. I'm amazed by all of your knowledge and just about these locomotives. It's unbelievable.
We make it up as we go.
Down to the hatch and the latch, and it's amazing. It's amazing the knowledge that you guys have. It's truly,
as I said, we're fun at parties.
And these are now all up on the new trainworld.com, Ken?
Yeah. Yeah, so actually, Mark had a question on pricing and paint schemes, and good segue. So all of these Rapido engines are on, and there's 2 different versions. There's the DCC Ready and DCC in Sound, and all you have to do, you could go to Shop by Brand Rapido and then search by engine styles. It's U25B, and you get all these different paint schemes here, and you could see their drawings over here. So some really nice stuff.
And the pink windows are not going to be pink on the model.
Yeah, that's not included.
that tells the factory that it's clear plastic.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Wow.
Keep in mind,
you can see it better here.
Yeah. Although it does look cool. It's colorful.
Yeah. Very cool.
I do like that on the new website, Ken, the little dots for like pre-order and new arrival, or that's a nice,
good.
For anybody that hasn't, trainworld.com, there's a new website. And to keep, I didn't get my text today. Shouldn't I got a text today on, I'm signed up to get my text for events.
You got to remind me, Tony. We've been working so hard on working out the kinks and everything on the website, but we'll get back and square it away. I've just been being pulled in a million directions these days.
I hear you there.
Give it to him right now so he doesn't feel left out.
Yeah.
Yes. I'll text you in 1 second, Tony. Hold on.
I'm sitting there working, and I think, boy, the dog and I might take a nap this afternoon. Kim's not texting me, so I don't think we're doing anything, and I could sleep through one of these and not know it. And you sign up for the text. That's on the website too.
Yes, it's on the website, and thank you, Tony. You're my biggest advocate because right now I'm forgetting everything, and quite honestly, even the emails we were just so backlogged with work and tweaking, and that we haven't sent out many emails, and we just got it started back this week, so we'll kick it up a notch again, and we'll get back on track. But this was great. I haven't seen you, Tony, in such a long time. We haven't done a live stream for a while.
Yeah.
So.
And what, Jordan, are you back next Tuesday? We got our big summer event.
Yes.
Where we're doing Amtrak.
The Amtrak event. I sent my list of things I hope to be talking about. We've got so much Amtrak. We got Amtrak coming into our ears right now, just over here at Rapido. So That's
Yeah.
going
A Q-tip will help.
exactly. Exactly.
Yeah,
So that's next Tuesday, the 27th at 6 Eastern, I think, Ken.
correct.
And we got anybody and everybody plus Matt Donnelly from Amtrak, who's a great guy. I did a podcast with him on A Modeler's Life, and he knows so much on the paint schemes, the stuff you'll learn. I mean,
Matt Donnelly does?
He does, you know, and I thought I knew Amtrak stuff, and like we were talking phases, and like he goes, "Oh, you mean 888?" I'm like, 888. What are you talking about? That's what you're calling phase 3. Each stripe is 8 inches. We call that 888. I'm like, oh, so you'll get a lot of secret Amtrak information with this Matt Donnelly thing next Tuesday.
And speaking of Amtrak, if you want to see P30CHs, go to our website and use that form. Make me happy.
I was able to find a brass one in phase 3, but I definitely need another fleet of those. So,
and I will say, this is going to be a groundbreaking event, and the credit goes to Tony. And Tony, he's brilliant, and he wants to put these pieces together, and he has these connections, and you know, it's really going to be the first kind of event ever for the train industry where you have an actual train company coming on a live event, talking with the manufacturers. And I'm really super amped about it. And from talking with Matt briefly, he seems really knowledgeable about trains, enthusiast. So it's going to be a really awesome event. And I know the manufacturers have been, you know, sneak peeking some of these products and just really amped about the new paint schemes that Amtrak is coming out with. And, you know, it's their 50th anniversary. So it's going to be a really awesome event. And so the credit goes to you, Tony, for really setting this thing up, and really tip our cap off to you.
It'll be fun. Speaking of that, Jordan, I'm waiting. You know, I ordered one of the 301E units that comes in the box. Is that on track? Will I have that by Christmas morning?
We're going to see. I know Bill got the very early first completed samples. He's working his way on that. He's got about 18 projects on his list right now, but he's got the first samples he's working on. We're going to try and get something painted up in the not too distant future. Christmas, we're going to see. It might be a little bit later than that for the release, but it's coming along nicely. He actually got the first sample of the box for what it's in comparison, so that's looking really good.
Very cool. Yeah, because that's coming in that whole wood box and everything.
It's its own box, which is going to be unique just to the 4360.
That's fantastic.
And of course, I need it myself, so.
I got to go and start mowing neighbors' yards to pay for all these U25s I'm buying from Ken, so I'm going to have to leave, but this was a wonderful evening. And I guess we'll see some or everybody back Tuesday. But Ken, thanks as always. It was so much fun.
Tony, Craig, Jordan, thank you guys so much. We really appreciate having you on. And Tony, another great episode. And thank you for being a part of it and coming up with the idea for U-Boat Madness.
Absolutely.
Thanks, guys.
As always, thank you guys very much. Appreciate it. Have a great night. And you could get all your Rapido product at trainworld.com. Shop online 24/7. And thank you. And we'll see you Tuesday, 6 p.m.
All right.
Take
See
care.
you then.